I told my husband I don't trust him, and now I don't know what to do. Longtime listener and first-time poster here. I apologize in advance, this might be a bit lengthy. My husband and I have been together for 6 years and married for about 8 months. We met when I was in college and he was working full-time. For a long time, he was the primary earner, covering our rent, utilities, and groceries, while I managed the household chores. Fast forward to now, we both have full-time jobs and earn about the same, so we split the bills evenly. Recently, we had a serious conversation about how I still feel like the mental and physical responsibilities of the house fall primarily on me. Even though we agreed things would change when I started contributing more financially, I still find myself planning and cooking most nights, cleaning up after meals, doing laundry, and managing everything else. I've always been open about not wanting our marriage to mirror the traditional dynamic where the wife bears the mental load while the husband only brings an income. I witnessed how damaging that can be in my own family, and I refuse to repeat that cycle. We rarely fight, but our arguments tend to revolve around this issue. I've often broken down in tears, feeling overwhelmed trying to balance work, school, and home responsibilities. Yet nothing seems to change. During a recent phone call after work, I asked my husband to pick up a few ingredients for dinner that I had forgotten. We needed ground beef, a can of tomatoes, and milk. When he got to the store, he asked for a reminder, and I mentioned the ingredients. He suggested he could cook since I had made dinner the night before, and I gratefully agreed, mentioning I had a migraine and didn't feel up to it. When he returned home about 30 minutes later, I asked where the tomatoes were, and he admitted he forgot them. I suggested I could go back to the store since we needed them for the sauce, but he insisted he would go. By this time, it was nearly 7 o'clock, and I was really hungry, so I decided to start the pasta myself to avoid a longer wait. When he came back, he seemed confused and said, "I thought I was cooking?" I explained the timing issue and how I needed to eat to take my migraine medicine. His response struck me. "This is the problem. You always ask me to help, but then you do it before I can, or if I do help, you micromanage everything I do. It feels like you don't trust me." That's when I blurted out, "I don't trust you." I clarified that I trust him in the big ways, his honesty, loyalty, and care for me and our pets. But when it comes to the small day-to-day tasks, I feel like I can't rely on him. I pointed out that he forgot a can of tomatoes just 5 minutes after I asked him to grab it. He fell silent for a moment and then asked, "And why did you marry me?" His voice broke my heart, and he left the room in tears. I finished cooking, packed away the food with a note that said, "I'm sorry," and ended up eating a bowl of cereal on the couch, where I slept that night. I realized my delivery was harsh, and I might have gone too far, but how else can I convey that I need him to step up? I'm not asking him to take over everything. I just want to come home to dinner being prepared, or a clean apartment every once in a while. I love him more than anything, but I'm exhausted from this cycle of promises to do better. I'm so tired. End. Please help me prank my husband, $20 plus. I've been living with my husband for years, and there's one thing that has become a bit of a running joke in our home. His framed poster of Jane Seymour, famously known as Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. He's carried this poster around for over 20 years, and it's been hung in every place we've ever lived. Honestly, it's become the bane of my existence. So I decided to pull a little prank. My plan? Replace his beloved 3-foot by 2-foot print with a photoshopped image of my face, just to see how long it would take him to notice. I have to admit, I have a lot of respect for Jane Seymour, but this was too good of an opportunity to pass up. As I shared this idea online, I was surprised by the response. People found it hilarious and even shared their own quirky stories about sentimental items in their relationships. I explained that I tolerate his quirks, just like he tolerates my elderly cat and her occasional mishaps. After all, when you share your life with someone, you learn to pick your battles. Some people question why I would even care about a poster. But it's not about Jane Seymour. It's about the fun of the prank and the laughter it brings into our lives. As of now, he hasn't noticed the change, but my cat seems quite disturbed by the new addition to our bedroom. In the end, it's all in good fun. We all have different senses of humor and expectations in our relationships, and that's perfectly okay. I can't wait to see his reaction when he finally realizes what I've done. Incident that happened to a high school sports star girl I knew in HS has traumatized me for nearly 2 decades. There was this girl, let's call her Allie. I wasn't close with her, but I knew her since grade school. By her sophomore year, she was already being talked about as the best basketball player in the state. Our school was small, and sports were taken very seriously. Allie was the kind of player who could change the outcome of playoff games and state championships. Bigger schools started pursuing her, with coaches and boosters trying to convince her to transfer, promising better opportunities and even pressuring her family. But she refused every time. She wanted to stay, play with her teammates, and finish school normally. Then, during the girls' basketball state playoff run, Allie went missing. This was a girl with a clean record, a good family, and a normal routine. In our small town, violent crime was almost unheard of. When she didn't come home, everyone noticed immediately. For days there were searches, family, police, and volunteers combing the area. Posters went up, and everyone hoped for the best. Then she was found. Her body was discovered a few days later in a secluded area just outside town. It was ruled a homicide. She had been strangled, with no signs of robbery or sexual assault. Just a young girl left somewhere quiet and out of sight. The case went cold, with no arrests or charges. But in our town, it's widely accepted what happened. People believed she was murdered because of high school sports, because she wouldn't transfer, because someone took it that seriously. I know this isn't common, but it's a harsh reality. I was reminded of it recently after seeing something at a high school football game online. It left me feeling sick. It shows how cruel people can be and how far some will go. This incident has left me with an intense fear of being attacked over trivial things. It's not logical, but I've never been able to shake it, even now at 35. I've developed deep trust issues with people. I struggle to explain this feeling, but I can't help but believe that deep down, everyone has a bit of darkness in them. Before I quit my job back in August, I did something a bit petty and ended up blocking certain websites on the workstations. This was brought up to me recently by an old coworker, and I thought it would be fun to share. For some context, I live in the Midwest and worked as a project manager at a company that had government contracts. My friend, who was in charge of cybersecurity, and I worked closely together, especially when it came to vetting visitors and managing access to the facility. I had a background in IT and even held a top-secret clearance from my previous job, which helped us collaborate effectively. Unfortunately, the company had a poor attitude towards IT, treating them like an afterthought and giving them a minimal budget. I often took on tasks to lighten their load, like installing new equipment or running tables. When my friend left for another job, I forgot I still had administrator credentials. On my last day, while closing up, I noticed one workstation left unlocked, blaring Fox News on the screen. The employee who used that station had been unpleasant to me, and a mischievous idea struck me. I accessed the web settings and began blocking that site, then moved on to other workstations, finding similar browsing histories. The beauty of it was that the workstations were all set up with a generic username and password, so it would be nearly impossible to trace the changes back to me. Plus, there were no cameras in the facility, and by the time they checked the logs, I would be long gone. I completely forgot about my little act of revenge until a plant manager reached out to me recently. He mentioned that they were having issues with the solar panels and needed help rebooting them. As we caught up, he casually mentioned a glitch in the matrix that had been bothering them for months. It turned out the weekend crew was frustrated because they couldn't access certain websites. Since the IT department was overwhelmed, it was deemed a low priority. But now, more employees were getting annoyed, and they were inadvertently throwing themselves under the bus by complaining about not being able to watch Fox News instead of focusing on their work. In the end, it felt like a win-win situation for me. I had a little fun on my way out, and now they were facing the consequences of their own distractions. Boyfriend has implied that he'd leave me if I wouldn't stop playing my PS4. I know this isn't your typical question, but I'm feeling really confused. I'm from the UK and have a very good job for someone my age, which can be quite stressful. When I come home from work, I like to unwind by playing my PS4 for an hour or two. My favorite game is Fallout 4, and I usually play it a couple of times a week. My boyfriend used to love that I enjoyed gaming, but lately he's been acting differently. His way of winding down is going to the pub, and while I enjoy socializing, I'm not in a phase of life where I want to go out and get drunk all the time. This morning, he invited me out for drinks, but I've had a really exhausting week and just wanted to relax. He got defensive and accused me of being more invested in my PS4 than in him. That really hurt, because we have a great relationship, and I make an effort to communicate and spend time together. He even said it wasn't ladylike for me to play games, and that I was too old for it. I've loved gaming since I was a kid, so his words stung. We ended up arguing, and he shouted at me, even threatening to leave. I was completely taken aback. He didn't even come home after work and went out with friends instead. Now I'm left wondering if I should talk to him about this or just walk away. Am I too old to enjoy gaming? Am I being childish? The next day he texted me, saying he was sorry, but that I needed a dose of the truth. It felt like a half-hearted apology. I was seriously considering ending things. Later that night, he came home drunk and didn't really apologize for his behavior. Instead, he insisted I needed to quit my boy habits. I confronted him about his sexist comments and told him he was being unreasonable. In the heat of the moment, I told him to go away and that we were done. I'm now at my parents' house, feeling a mix of emotions. He's been sending me texts ranging from "I'm sorry, please come back" to insults. I know I deserve better than this. At least now I can focus on my game and enjoy some time to myself. My boyfriend confessed his love to my 17-year-old sister. I don't even know where to begin. The day I discovered that my long-term boyfriend had confessed his love to my sister, everything shattered. We had been together for almost 5 years. I met him in my early 20s, and back then, he felt like the most loving and gentle person I had ever known. He was my safe place, my home. He was attentive, supportive, and always there when I needed him. Initially, my family was against our relationship due to cultural differences. He did everything he could to prove himself. He learned my language, adapted to my family's values, and even moved abroad with me for a short time when I went to study, saying he couldn't leave me alone. He left everything behind for me. After we returned to our country, we continued our relationship. We didn't live together full-time. I lived with my parents, and he lived with his. Whenever my family went on vacation, he stayed at our home for weeks, sometimes even longer. My sister was still a child when he first started staying with us. He took her to school and did groceries for us. To me, they felt like siblings. That's why I was in absolute shock when my sister told me that about a month ago, he confessed his love to her. She said he told her, "Your sister was my first love, but you are my true love." And I wanted to force this situation so that it could not go any other way. I believe my sister completely. She had no reason to lie and was clearly distressed and terrified to tell me. She didn't share it immediately because I was going through a stressful time with school and she didn't want to burden me. According to her, they stayed awake together until around 5 a.m. Afterward, when I asked him why he had been awake all night with my sister, he acted like I was irrational and overreacting. That reaction unsettled me and is one reason I believe her. Culturally, we hadn't been allowed to stay together overnight for months. It was confusing that during that time when he could have been with me, he chose to spend the night with my sister instead. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. When I expressed my discomfort, we argued, and he acted as if I was crazy for feeling that way. He asked questions like, "What do you think would happen?" And "Do you expect that from me or from her?" At the time, I thought he was just offended by my feelings. But looking back, it feels like he was testing my suspicions. After his confession, my sister asked him to end our relationship because she felt it was too painful and unfair to me. He told her he would break up with me, knowing what he was doing wasn't right. Shortly after that, he tried to break up with me, which had never happened before. He claimed our relationship was going badly and that others thought the same. Not knowing the truth, I tried to fix things and convince him we could work it out. We decided to give our relationship another chance, all while he was staying with me. During that time, I started noticing things that felt off, but brushed them aside. He listened to the same music my sister did, reacted emotionally when she didn't reply, and seemed more focused on her during family emergencies than on me. I told myself he was just being a protective older brother. At the end of that month, he told my sister he had decided not to break up with me after all, because he deserved love too and was allowed to be selfish. When everything finally came to light, I confronted him. He didn't deny crossing boundaries, but minimized it all. He claimed the confession wasn't romantic and tried to justify his behavior by bringing up a situation where my sister briefly dated an older man, as if that made his actions acceptable. That same day, he admitted he had developed feelings for her, but not romantically, claiming my sister kissed him while intoxicated about a year ago. He said this was very hard for him. I don't believe him. Even if something like that had happened, he should have come to me immediately and acted like an adult. Instead, he hid it for a year while continuing our relationship as if everything was normal. The day after my sister told me everything, I contacted his sister. She acted like I was foolish and said my sister was lying. Later, I spoke to his mother, who was hostile from the start. She insisted my sister must be lying and that I was ungrateful for everything her son had done for me. She even indirectly threatened me if I took further steps. At that moment, I realized how alone I was in this. My life shattered the day I found out my boyfriend of almost 5 years confessed his love to my sister. I broke up with him, but I honestly don't know what to do anymore. I feel devastated, betrayed, confused, and completely broken. What would you have done? You want to try to take 9 inches of our property. We will take 20 feet of yours. We've lived in our house for about 8 years in a rural neighborhood in Arizona. About a year ago, a guy from California bought the lot next to us and threw a fit about some things we had near the property line. We had placed a single fence pole, vaguely marking where we thought the boundary was. It was meant to be a temporary marker, but it ended up becoming permanent. This guy was absolutely furious that we had vehicles parked on his property, even though just the tip of one of our cars was touching the established boundary. He threatened to have our vehicle towed, so we decided to have an actual land survey done. It turned out the property line was a good 20 feet into his land. He should have just let things be and not made a fuss over a few inches. To give you some context, we live in a small, rural neighborhood in the mountains of Arizona, where all the houses are on 3 to 5 acre lots. The roads are dirt and unmaintained. When we moved here in 2016, the area was affordable, and we appreciated the relaxed vibe with messy yards. But in recent years, property values have skyrocketed, attracting new neighbors who care about appearances. This neighbor introduced himself by calling the county on several of us anonymously. He bragged about reporting others for their messy yards, so we suspected he included us in his complaints. He even trespassed onto our property by at least 40 feet to inspect our piles of scrap metal. We caught this on camera and confronted him via text. It turned out he was upset about buying land next to what he considered a pseudo-scrapyard. We had several cars in various stages of disassembly, which is normal for our area. What's more, he didn't even live on that lot. He bought it along with a small cabin 3 houses down, intending to turn it into an income property. After our text exchange, he confronted us in person, leaning against our no trespassing sign and shouting at us. Since then, we haven't seen him. We caught him on our security camera, looking at the survey markers, looking dismayed. It's possible we chased him out of the neighborhood entirely. Interestingly, the people on the other side of his lot, who also have a messy yard due to their small-scale pig farming, had such a bad experience with him that one of them even got a restraining order against him. They're now facing a dispute over a shed that she built on his lot over 15 years ago, which means they might have to go to court over ownership. Currently, we're building an unsightly fence along the newly surveyed property line. Have we heard from Morbid Mommy? I've been oddly concerned about this user since they posted about a year ago, and I haven't been able to find any updates. Here's the gist of their story. My husband and I are expecting our first child, which I knew would be a sensitive issue for him since his mother died during childbirth. We met with a marriage counselor to talk things through, and he says he's been seeing his own therapist twice a month throughout my pregnancy. But I can't shake the feeling that he's either not going or not addressing the real issue. He and his father are convinced that I'm going to die in childbirth. They won't openly admit it, but their behavior makes me feel constantly stressed and uncomfortable. When my husband started saying things like, "Please make sure your life insurance is up to date," I thought it was intense, but went along with it. However, when he asked me to inventory my possessions for the baby and my family in case of my death, I firmly said no. It felt too morbid. My father-in-law, who lives nearby and often joins us for dinner, criticized me for making things difficult for my husband, who might become a grieving widower with a newborn. I've had a completely complication-free pregnancy, and I have no reason to think anything will go wrong. When I express my concerns, my husband calls me paranoid. It feels like my father-in-law wants me to die. His identity has been tied to being an amazing single dad for the past 35 years. I can't shake the feeling that he's looking forward to guiding my husband through what he experienced. At this point, I'd be happy to never see my father-in-law again, especially since he insists on being in the delivery room and has even said I'm not allowed to have an epidural or laughing gas. He has a commanding presence, and I know he will get his way. My husband supports his dad in all of this and acts like my due date is my death date. Every moment with him feels morbid and stressful, and it seems like our marriage is crumbling. No matter how many times I tell him his behavior makes me anxious, it only seems to get worse. I don't want this negativity around me while I'm focused on giving birth. Do I owe it to my husband to let him stress me out during labor? Is his presence more important than a safe and healthy delivery? My therapist says no. But this whole situation feels so strange that I feel like I need some outside perspective. I also heard from someone else that when this story was discussed on social media, the original poster wanted it taken down or tried to distance themselves from the publicity. Maybe it's just me being overly concerned, but I'm genuinely worried for this user. Has anyone heard anything about them? My BFF put gas in my drink. Hello, I don't usually post here, but something happened last weekend that I can't forgive, and I really need advice. I'm a 21-year-old woman, and I had a best friend, let's call her Katie, who is also 21. We've been close since grade school. Lately, though, she's been acting strangely. There were little comments that felt off, and she was very short with me in conversations. I brushed it off, not wanting to seem dramatic. I decided to throw a small barbecue with about 15 friends. Nothing wild, just grilling and hanging out by the fire. I invited Katie, even with her odd behavior, because I didn't want to deal with any drama. I don't typically drink, but that day I decided to join in. At one point, while I was helping my boyfriend set up the food table, Katie went inside to grab me another drink. Everything seemed fine until she handed me the cup. As soon as I brought it closer, I couldn't shake the feeling that it smelled like gasoline. I asked her what liquor she used, and she said Everclear, but I didn't recall any being in the house. She kept insisting I drink it, but I set it down, claiming my stomach hurt and saying I was done for the day. About an hour later, she left without saying goodbye to anyone. The next morning, I told my boyfriend about the strange smell. We went outside, and there was the cup sitting in the yard. We dumped the drink, and it still smelled strongly of gasoline. My boyfriend checked the garage, and the gas can for the lawnmower was just sitting there. Katie has a rocky psychiatric background. She's diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and lost her dad last year. So, I found myself wondering, did my best friend really try to give me gasoline to drink? Or am I just imagining things? I need advice. Update. For everyone suggesting I keep the cup, I did. Nobody has touched the gas can since we found it. After reading everyone's advice, I talked to my mom, and I'll be making a police report. Thank you for your concern. Katie has tried to contact me multiple times, creating fake accounts to apologize for acting strange. I just keep blocking her. I've been an emotional wreck since this happened. I can't understand why someone would do this, especially someone I considered a friend. Another friend, Laura, reached out to me last night. She mentioned that during the BBQ, she went into the kitchen while Katie was there. And Katie was acting really strange, possibly under the influence of something. Laura tried to talk to her, but Katie didn't want to engage. Others at the party noticed Katie going in and out of rooms, acting odd. I'll be asking some of them to come with me to the police station tomorrow. Thank you for all the advice. Update 2. I've made the police report and got a temporary restraining order until I can get a more permanent one. The police asked me questions and requested the cup, the gas can, any security footage and messages from Katie. They also talked to my boyfriend. They're going to investigate further and speak with other witnesses. I want to clarify that I'm in remission from BPD myself. I mentioned Katie's background because I know people would ask, but I'm not blaming her condition for her actions. Thank you all for your kind words and support.